You know, sometimes it's just about asking the right question. This morning I asked a question, what did I do with my contact lenses? About a month ago, I picked up my new lenses. 2 boxes. I've kind of made it a habit on Communion Sunday to put in my new lenses. That way I remember to do that every month. So I opened up the drawer this morning. No boxes. Where did I put those? That started a hunt. Just what I needed on a Sunday morning, completely distracting. Even got Kathy involved. What car were we driving? That was a good question. Because then you can look in the glove box and all the little cubby holes. What else did we do that day? Well, let's see. We went to St. Joe, shopping. I haven't found him yet, by the way. I didn't want to take too much time. I didn't want to think about that, Rod. If we were driving the car that I traded in, and they were in the glove box, I think we checked it out pretty good, because we even remembered this, after the guy said something, the CD and the CD player, which is usually what people leave. I hope not. I don't think we were driving that car. I hope not. We probably need to give the dealer a call. But see, I haven't asked the right question yet. That's why I haven't found the answer. Sometimes the answers are easy when you know the right question. And if you can't figure out the right question, you just never get the answer you're looking for. The disciples were coming down off the mountain. I just love this image. They were coming down from this experience where they had seen this rabbi that they've been following, and yeah, he said some great things, and he'd done some pretty impressive things, but who really was this guy? And they've been on this mountaintop, and here he's been transfigured, and they've seen Abraham and Isaiah, and I mean, wow! And so on the way down the mountain, they're discussing who is the greatest among them. Because this guy's really something, and that makes us really something, and I'm better than you. And I like me best anyway. They weren't talking about what they'd just seen. They weren't talking about the implications of the fact that this guy really was just not your normal wandering rabbi zealot, fighting Rome. I mean, he just wasn't, this wasn't ordinary. This was something really special, and they wanted to know what piece of it they were going to get. And so Jesus said, what have you been talking about? Oh, nothing. We weren't talking about anything. What have you been talking about? We weren't talking about it. We were talking about which one of us was the greatest. They knew that probably that wasn't the best conversation to have, because they knew Jesus by then. But that's the conversation they were having anyway, and figured out he wouldn't hear it. They hadn't figured out that it didn't really matter whether they heard it or not. He knew what they were talking about anyway. And Jesus met them right where they were. He didn't chastise them for it. He didn't say, guys, they don't like here. I mean, it's something, He didn't do any of that stuff. He just said, well, okay, if you want to be the greatest, then you must be the servant of all. And therefore laid a course for the church. You would not believe this, but churches sometimes argue about who's the greatest. I know that would never happen here. But sometimes churches get the idea that they're the most important church in town, or that church really doesn't know what they're doing, or that church, I don't know about them, and they got it wrong over there, and we do it the right way. And we get feeling pretty good about ourselves. We are first church. We are something else. And yet, it's the churches in town that are the servants to the community, are the ones that are known by folks that don't go to church as the good church in town. It's nice when I bump into people in stores and other places around town and I get introduced and they go, oh, the Methodist Church. Yeah, that's a good place. That's a good feeling. That's much better than, oh, the Methodist Church. I'm sorry you have to be there, Pastor. You wouldn't want that reaction. There are a few places where I got that reaction, but it's nice in town to have the reaction that people say, oh, yeah, that's... And it's usually because of something we've done. Through the food pantry, through Kids Hope, through all the various other ministries that we end up doing through the food pantry, and through our backpack ministry. Word gets around. You'd be surprised how many people that have no connection with this church know what we're up to. And that's pretty good. And they're happy about it. Sometimes even inside a church people get, I know it never happened here, but you would not believe that sometimes people get more concerned about what power or control they have rather than what they're doing. We do that because we're human. Sometimes I have even thought to myself, sometimes if I don't do this, it won't get done right. You ever thought that? If I don't do this, it won't get done right. It's, what I found in my life is other people can do it right too. I hate that. No, actually I don't. But it reminds me that I don't know everything. It reminds me that other people have skills and gifts and talents too. It reminds me that I'm not, that I am replaceable. It reminds me that I am a tool in God's toolbox to do the things God gives me to do. And the screwdriver doesn't say to the hammer, I'm better than you, because I can do stuff you can't do. Because the hammer will say it right back. And the only thing that's good about a hammer or a screwdriver is to have the right tool at the right time. If you got driving a nail, that's real tough to do with a screwdriver. Unless it's a big screwdriver, but it's pretty hard on the handle. And, if you got to turn in the screw, it's tough to do with a hammer, isn't it? The thing is, God needs all those tools, all those skills and gifts and graces to make the whole church work. And, if we're blessed with some leadership skills and we end up being leaders of different committees and teams and tasks, that doesn't make us better than other folks. It just gives our skills a chance to work. As we do our studies this week, we're going to talk about asking the right questions. And it's not about, am I better than you? But it is about, what does God want me to do? And how can I be useful as a tool for this congregation, for this community, for God's church. The disciples were arguing about who was the greatest. Maybe the right question is, what is the greatest need? As you drive around this community, as you look around, as you see people, as you know them, as you work with them, what's the greatest needs? What would make this community a better place to live? And then, can we do something about that? Invariably, someone will ask what it's cost. That's not the right question. I mean, you have to ask that, but that's not the first question. That's not the question that drives what you do. Eventually, you have to figure out how to fund it. But it's the need and the ability to answer that need. That's the right questions to ask. We might ask, what did we do last time we did something? And that's always valuable because you learn from that. But it's more important to ask, how can we accomplish it this time? What will it look like in the future? As we gather on All Saints' Day, I wonder how many people of the past in this congregation wondered what this place would be in 50 years. How many of those in the 1850s wondered, I wonder what this place will be like at the turn of the century? And if they wondered, wonder what it'll be like in 1950. And some back in the 50s wondered what it would be like in the year 2000. And now we wonder what it's going to be like in 2050. Most of us won't be here. But we expect the church to be here. And the decisions that we make, the questions that we ask now, will determine whether or not it'll be here in 2050. That's a responsibility that they took. That's a responsibility that we take to ensure that this community of faith exists in this community for the good of God. And to do that, we have to ask the right questions. So in our groups this week, we'll be asking lots of questions. We'll be discovering what the right questions are. Mainly the right question is the second one that Jesus asked. Who do you say I am? Who do you say I am? Who do you say I am? Because who we believe Jesus to be determines everything else that we do. If we believe Jesus to be a really good rabbi who taught us a lot of new things about God, we'll operate one way. If we believe Jesus to be the one who brings us into right relationship with God through his resurrection, through his presence in our lives, and that leads us to do other things. If we believe Jesus to be the King of our lives, the Lord of all that we do, and that leads us to do other things. We have to answer that question, each one of us, for ourselves. Who is Jesus? Who is he in my life, and how important? What does that make me do or not do? That's the right question. And there are a lot of answers. Keep that question before you. Who is Jesus? And what difference does that make? How does that guide where I go from here? Let's pray. Lord, sometimes we don't ask hard questions because we don't like the answers. It's easy to get in routines and even do things like come to church and worship without really thinking too hard about it. And yet you call us to so much more. Help us, each of us, search our hearts this week as we answer that question. Who do we say you are? And what difference does that make